They were able to trick a lot of people into thinking that was the legitimate website when they tried to make it look as similar as possible. So that's, again, the same sort of principle in doing that. Now, and if you can't do that, sometimes you just can't do it. So what else can you do? You can make something that is unnatural become more natural. And you can do this with like some sort of contrived justification. If you come up with some sort of situation that help explain this, and maybe even adding things to it to make this sort of thing seem more reasonable, you can do that. Social engineering does this a lot. Another thing you can do is repetition. If you do something once, it's suspicious. If it happens 100 times, and nothing happens, it's not so suspicious. For instance, if you had an exploit, which you may want to do that you couldn't, that would leave log entries, you could, for instance, create a tool that you let script kiddies run that looks like probes for this vulnerability but doesn't actually do anything. And if people started using these tools, they would start generating alarms on systems, but they realize, oh, it's just that script kiddie tool, it's harmless, it doesn't do anything. They might not notice it if you have a real exploit that has the exact signature as a script kiddie tool. All right, now let's do something else. I'm going to do a coin vanish. Okay, I'm going to take this coin, I'm going to move away from the mic a little bit. I am going to make this coin vanish by tapping it with my wand here on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, the coin didn't vanish. The pencil vanished. I stuck it behind my ear. See, you weren't looking for that. See, you thought the coin was going to vanish when well, at least I still got my pencil. All right, thank you. There were no sleights whatsoever in that illusion. All it was misdirection. That's all I used to do that. I just made you look somewhere else when I was doing it, and that's how that particular effect works. So misdirection, what is it? It's a way to control someone's attention so that they look over here when you're doing something secret over here. Now how can you do this? One of the most important things you want to do is you want to find something that they're going to be interested in. Something that they're going to want to take a look at, something that appeals to them or has a great interest to them. And it's hard to tell exactly what it is because there's so many different cases, people are different and all that. I mean, you can do things that might, magicians a lot of times would have an assistant in a skimpy outfit, and she might drop something and bend over to pick up something, and all the men would be looking at her bending over while this magician's doing something secret over there. Those are examples of things like that. It all depends on what the crowd, what appeals to the crowd. And I've seen this in some email and Facebook things that says, "Oh my God, you won't believe what she's doing in this picture." And you may not realize this, wait a minute, there's something kind of hinky about this thing here, but the topic is such as say, I got to take a look at what this is, and you click on it. Now that is, okay, there's different kinds of misdirection. The first one is the directed misdirection, where you say, look over there, and of course that doesn't always work. It has to be something logical that makes sense. You can use certain things like if it doesn't make sense, it might be suspicious, and if you're suspicious, you may not look where they want you to look. You may look elsewhere. So it's really important to make this make sense. So you have to find out what attracts their attention. Lady Gaga or Justin Bieber or free iPad. That gets people's attention a lot. They stop thinking about certain things. So now the other thing you can do is on the uniqueness of the event. Some things that just sort of grab your attention. Hackers have set off fire alarms when they've broken into systems. They might be able to get access to the HVAC that's attached to a computer network and manipulate the environment that way. Or they could set off another attack. Sony was just mentioned recently how they had a very sophisticated attack that was happening while another attack was occurring, and that's why they missed it. if you believe them. Now there's another kind, which is a little subtler. It's called discovered misdirection. In other words, you don't tell them about it, you wait for them to discover it on their own. So it's sitting there ahead of time, waiting to be discovered, and when they look at it, they say, oh my, and they look at this. So it can be very useful, but you have to control the timing, because the timing is not always under your control. If you can do certain things to make them want to go there and look at it, that's what this will do. So I'm going to give an example of this later on. There's also another kind of misdirection called constrained misdirection. Penn and Teller do something where they throw something over someone's head and he doesn't know what happened to it and everyone else does, because they're controlling what he sees. That can happen, it happened a long time ago. I'm not too sure how it happens right now, but if you can control the environment, maybe get an administrator to have remote access into a machine that you control, they may not see the things that, that they think they're seeing, because you're controlling the environment. So that's a possibility. Now here's some more advanced psychological techniques. I was just mentioning misdirection, but there's a lot more magicians can apply to fool people. All right, one of the most useful techniques magicians use is they want to encourage a false conclusion. Magicians have these things they call sucker tricks, and it's designed so that when it's being performed, it's pretty obvious to you what's really happening, and you start seeing, you start thinking what it's going to be. They do this a lot with kids. They want the kids to yell out and saying, "I know what you're doing. Turn it around. It's on the other side," whatever. And of course, at the very end, the magician reveals the fact that, well, no, you're wrong. This is what really happened. They turn the other side and something completely different. Or they'll make you think that someone's hidden underneath a table that's surrounded by a curtain, and then they pull away the curtain at the last minute. So oh, they're not under the table. So this is really, really useful. It's you have to basically get them to experience a false premise. A false alarm is also another thing that can do this. So that if you can generate an alarm, you might make them think something's happening when it's not. So that's another useful thing to do. You could repeat that, and they would also then learn to not trust alarms if you're abusing that. Some examples: the dark market sting. The guy was pretending to be involved in illegal activity. Another case I saw on the SANS mailing list. Someone had a shockwave file, and it had malware in it. It had a virus in it, but it also had the iCard test virus in it. Why would a file have a harmless a virus and a real virus in the same file? I think it was someone trying to be deceptive. Another good thing the magicians love to do is they like to be able to use multiple methods. If I can do the same effect using 3 completely different concepts, it becomes really hard for someone to figure out what's going on. For instance, let's say I was doing a trick and it required a trap door, okay? But I could also do the same trick, but this time I didn't use a trap door, I used a mirror. And they looked identical. If you saw both versions of it, you say, I've seen it more than once, and he didn't use a trap door and he didn't use a mirror, so I don't know what he did. But meanwhile, it's like when I'm not using a trap door, I'm using a mirror. When I'm not using a mirror, I'm using a trap door. And that's very useful. So if you have multiple ways to do certain things, it makes it really hard to figure out which one it is that's really happening. And it's a very good psychological thing, because they say, once they say, well, it's not this, I know it's not this, they tend to want to believe that again. Another thing that some magicians have done, especially when they're working, trying to steal market share from another magician, is they will come up with an illusion that maybe is an improvement over someone else's illusion, and they'll tell people, says, unlike some magicians, we don't use a trap door or whatever it is, and they purposely reveal the technique that other people are doing to improve the illusion of what they're doing. And that could be useful too. We'll talk about that. All right, and another very useful thing for magicians is a switch, where they're using something, a gimmick, or I'm sorry, a gaff, using something that's gaffed. And what they do is they let you examine it, and then they regular object, and they switch it for the gaffed object, or maybe they do it the other way around, where they use the gaffed object and they switch it for regular object, and then hand it out, let people take a look at this. So that, that's very common. And you can do this in hacking too. If you had like programs, you could switch programs in and out very quickly, or programs that self-destruct after they accomplish certain things. So there's ways that this can be done as well. Now, the fake revelation, I mentioned this before, and I'll give an example of this in a little bit in this scenario. Okay, all right, so, all right, so let me summarize some of the stuff we talked about, and then I'm going to give you the scenario. See, first of all, I believe there's a lot of things in common, but what I do not think is a lot of people have applied the psychological techniques of a magician as they're hacking as much as they could. And I'm going to try to describe this, and we'll call this person a magician hacker, I guess. I don't know what else to call. So let's pick a scenario. We've got this company, and they have some very valuable intellectual property. I'm thinking, for instance, they could have a server that has all their source code of everything on it, or some sort of database with very valuable financial information or something. But they also have very good security. The XYZ company has really good security, and they got sharp people. Now the hacker's inside. He's already gotten into the network, and he has limited access to it. And also one more thing too, if this intellectual property is stolen and they learn about this, it may not be worth as much money. It might be, for instance, trade secrets that if you can steal this without them knowing it, it's more valuable. But if they know that it's stolen, they might do something else. And also, in this scenario, any obvious attempt to extract information and send it out onto the internet would be detected and blocked. So the initial thing of what might be done can't be done. You have to do something else. So what would the magician hacker do? All right, let me build the scenario a little bit. First, we're going to have a patsy involved. This is Unlucky Lucy. She is the administrator of this server. Okay, she's responsible for it, and she's smart. She's really alert. She's smart. If anything strange happened, she'd detect it. She'd make sure it got stopped. All right. But let's say the magician hacker has partial access to some of her files. Maybe she's got a directory that she owns that he can put some files into it. And also, she also has some files that under her control that can be propagated throughout the network. Maybe she's got some sort of startup batch file or something like that people use, or something along those lines. All right, and so what does he do with there? He sort of scopes it out, finds the patsy, and then first step he's going to go to some web forums and create an account using Lucy's name and create some interesting little pieces of information there, which we'll discover later. Okay? All right. There's also Innocent Ivy. Something's gonna happen to her too, but this is all like setting up the discovered misdirection thing. All right? So the hacker has to do a little bit more work. He's going to create some files on a public-facing web server. But these are files that are not indexed on the main page. So search the spider might not find them. You have to know about the URLs to actually see these files. So these files are created, and the